Bjorn Lomborg, what for you? What's your yardstick for a good deal? And do you agree with Mary Robinson that this goal of pushing it below heating the planet by more than 2 degrees is doable?
Well, I think Mary is very clearly pointing out what a lot of people are hoping will come out of Paris. I think there will be some statements towards 1.5. I think we also need to recognize that it's almost impossible to envision happening. Just to give you a sense of proportion, if you take the UNFCCC, so the ones who have actually invited for this conference, they estimate that from 2016 to 2030, we're going to cut somewhere between 30 and 50 gigatons of CO2. Now, to most people, gigatons, what does that really mean? But to give you a sense of proportion, if we're going to make it just to 2 degrees, we will need to cut 6,000 gigatons of CO2 over this century. So in a very simple way, you could say the current Paris Agreement at best delivers a little bit less than 1% of what we need. And that's why
1%.
And that's why I'm a little concerned about this process in some way promises to do fairly little. And remember, at a fairly high cost, if you run the numbers with the best models we have, we're talking perhaps $1 trillion or thereabouts per year. So my best outcome is actually not to focus on the current deal, because this is going to be, at any way, a very small impact at a very high cost. That's not probably what we'd rather have.
At a very high cost?
Yes.
How so?
So if you look at, if you try to switch to greener energy sources, that's great for the environment, but it also has a cost. So if you run it through the climate economic models, typically out of Stanford Energy Modeling Forum, which has the best period models from across the world, if you estimate what's the cost for Europe to achieve its 40% below 1990 levels by 2030, which is what Europe has promised, the cost is probably about $300 billion a year. So for the US, it's $150 billion. For China, it's $200 billion. For Mexico, it's $80 billion. That's all we have for period models. That's about 80% of the emissions. So approximately, we're talking $1 trillion in lost GDP growth per year by 2030.